It is your should be Wednesday night sports delight, but it's on a Thursday. We back at it again, the platform sports talk show. I am your boy Smooth, along with
Bunny
when it's about sports
becomes our bit.
and business just picked up. Welcome back once again. We had an incredible show last night. Big shout out to Class of 95, big man from Vashon High School, Marquise Watkins. That was an incredible show. And it just gets better and better and better. What do you think?
Hey, what's up with that t-shirt? What's that thing? What do we represent?
Oh, here we go. Stand up for you. Boom. Black King, the most popular
Black King, okay.
And shouts out to, of course, all the queens out there. Y'all know what's happening.
Yeah, especially our queen, Breonna Taylor. What happened yesterday, but still be fighting for her and other people affected by it.
That's what's up. And shouts out to Mimi Love. She says good evening. She hasn't seen a show in a long time, so she doesn't realize that we now have a lady on the show. So shouts out to you, Mimi. It's been a long time, but good to have you back watching the show. Miss Williams, good to see you as well. Bunny says, by the way,
Miss Williams.
She says, by the way, I love your input, Bunny. You famous.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You a household name now.
Wow, this happened so quickly.
Shoot,
you know my line. What do I know?
Hey, back then, it was Bugs Bunny, but now it's just Bunny.
I graduated, huh?
Ms. Williams says, I always wanted to play basketball, but a natural lack of talent in passing, shooting, and catching got in my way.
Oh, that's okay, Miss Williams.
Hey, but her son, Eddie, shouts out to him. He was a beast. Me and him, Jonathan, back in the day, my boy Miko, Gerondo, Paul, rest in peace, Paul McElvain, Joey Headington, all of them in the past and Gateway doing my young years. Had a great time with it. For those watching, thank you very much. For those watching for the very first time, this has been a show we've been doing 3 years strong. Bunny just got on for the last month and a half, so she's still getting, acclimated.
I'm a rookie.
She's a rook. She's like Tyler Hero, though. Coming in, just scoring buckets. Scoring buckets.
I'm trying to hold it down like Hero did yesterday, right?
Right. You got to come through and be our Shiro.
Hey, Shiro, be clutch. Gotta be clutch.
There it is. And, of course, you see us doing everything on Zoom. So if you see a little lag, we do apologize. We're going to do the best that we can to make this show as smooth, no pun intended, as possible, because we do have a special show for you once again on a Thursday night. Give us a like, give us a follow, hit that retweet on Twitter, go on YouTube, subscribe, click on that.
Hell.
There you go, because anytime we go live, like right now,
you will be notified.
All right, so we're not going to hold our guest any longer. He told me before the show, like, hey, legend, I respect that, but
yes.
He's too humble of a guy to be called legend. He said people like Jack Buck are legends, which I agree on. And that's such a St. Louis thing. You just come in, you just do your job, do your passion, and you love it. Former sports anchor, news anchor, and play-by-play man for the St. Louis Rams.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring him
Not
on.
That other St. Louis Rams.
Right. Oh, and Miss Williams, yes, he's been helping me out trying to get that together. So we're working on it still. But without any further ado, we want to go ahead and bring in the man himself, Mr. Steve Savard. There he goes.
Nice to be with you guys.
It is definitely our pleasure. Let me make one adjustment. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Doing well. It's once again definitely a pleasure to have you on our show. I want to make one adjustment so everybody can see us better. Let's see here.
You know, funny, Steve, I'm not trying to put my age out there, but I started watching sports and specifically football when the Rams came to town. And I always paid attention to certain broadcasts to pick up and hear the talk and look at all the interviews way back from the mid-90s. Your face, I will never, ever forget. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, so if I hesitate in answering the question, I'm hearing some stuff get said back to me twice. But you know, you've been here. If you stick around long enough, I was here 26 years. You get people coming up to you saying, "I've been watching you forever." So it's the alternative, not getting to 26.
Yeah, and I mean, how many people can say that they've done something that they love and had a passion for 26 years?
Well, I will tell you this. When my time in the NFL was cut short by injury, much shorter than I would have liked, when I went off to little Billy, Montana for $12,000 a year, starting my TV career, somebody had said to me down the road, "You get 26 years of television news in your hometown and 16 seasons calling NFL football in your hometown," I would have said, "Sign me up right away." So I've been blessed, and it's been good for me professionally and personally.
Nice. We have a comment or a few comments already from Miss Alice Williams. She says, "I love Steve Savard's sports analysis." Then she also says,
nice.
"Steve, I loved your sports challenges. You really are an all-around athlete."
Well, she's going back to ancient history. That was when I first came to town for about a year. We had fun with people challenging me to do things, and of course, it was most of the endeavors in which I hadn't really done any, so I got crushed most every time. And but I appreciate her loyalty over the years.
Yeah, and once again, it's definitely an honor to have you on the show. Let's get right into it. A question that we always ask our guests all the time is, when did you find out or develop, should I say, your love of sports?
It was pretty early in my family. We have, I had an older brother, 6.5 years older sister, 4.5. So I had to keep up with them and everything sports and their friends. I started playing organized football and baseball at age 7. It seemed pretty easy to compete against my own age group after competing against my older siblings. But we were a sports crazy family from the start. When we weren't playing outside, when we weren't on our respective teams, organized teams, we were watching sports on TV. So it was ingrained in me from an early age, and we're still a sports family.
Nice. And what was the very first sport that you started playing?
Well, I ended up playing organized football. My parents got into an argument about whether or not I was going to play Little League football. It was the junior football league back in the early 70s, and it was big back then. So many kids played. My mom was like, "Nah, you're young, could get hurt." My dad was like, "Let's just see how it goes." My dad won the argument, and I'm sure glad he did, because football was ingrained in me from the time I was 7 years old. There's nothing like it. I enjoyed baseball. I picked up basketball later, but football was really special to me from the first time I strapped on a helmet and played. And I think back and I think, thanks, Dad, for winning that argument.
There you go. Shouts out to the pops out there. Definitely shouts out to the pops out there. So,
yeah.
Now we know that nowadays you have so many different leagues, whether it's in basketball, you have your baseball summer leagues, and your basketball summer leagues, etc. Football as well. Was there a certain league that you played in as a youngster before going to high school?
Yeah, it was called Junior Football League, JFL. And I played for an organization called West County. And back then, there really wasn't specialized year-round training. We went from football into basketball, into baseball, and then back into football. I know a lot of kids grow up now playing one sport and specializing, especially when coaches or trainers think that they have a great talent in one specific area. I loved how we grew up. We played them all. We went from one sport to another. When football ended, we went to basketball. When basketball ended, we went to baseball. So I feel fortunate to grow up, having grown up playing all three of those.
Nice. So how important was it for your father to have you not just play one sport, but play as many sports as possible?
I was fortunate. My parents would have supported. They did support me in everything and would have supported me no matter what I did. My dad loved me playing all the sports, but football was definitely his favorite. And like I said, I had great support from my parents in college. I played 45 games. They traveled to 44 of them. They saw 44 of my 45 games. And my NFL situation didn't work out quite the way I would have wanted it to. An injury in my second training camp, but I look back and I think I played the game for 17 years, and it was good for me. It taught me a lot of life lessons. It taught me discipline. It taught me working with other people. It taught me putting team first in front of your own goals. And I think a lot of the things that I learned at an early age in football, I still carry with me today at age 56.
We have a question from Ms. Williams. She says, what are the advantages to young athletes to playing multiple sports?
Well, I think it can be. I think a lot of times, sometimes the kids get hurt. Repetitive motion injuries when you are performing at an early age, just one sport. I think, some orthopedists would tell you that I'm no expert here, but you can overdo it in one area. And I don't know if it's a personal preference thing. I'm just glad I grew up the way I did, and I got a chance to sample all of them. I think it made football more special for me because it was my best sport. Baseball was second. Basketball was clearly my third best sport. And I think as I got older and started putting my eggs in the football basket, it made me appreciate the game even more.
Right. And it's like nowadays you see so many football athletes and basketball athletes running track, being involved in track. It's like,
no question.
It's like one of the most things to do. I know that certain football teams, baseball teams, they'll do a little yoga or so many different spin classes now. So many different sports and so many different sports are being used now for athletes. They're not just focused on this one thing. A few months ago, we had from Kirkwood High School track coach Roberta McWoods, and how she was saying how a lot of her players were football players, basketball players, and they ran track with her or for her.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And the kids now are young kids and high school kids. They just have access to so much more information, training information, diet information, nutrition. We didn't know a whole lot about anything of that nature back in the day. I started playing sports and even through high school, and we didn't have the internet. We had, if you like to work out, you had Muscle and Fitness and Flex Magazine and a couple of others, that really didn't help you train for football. And so I just think we've come so far with so many different training protocols, and it can help kids stay healthy and actually maximize their abilities in whatever sports they choose.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on this? So we had guests yesterday, and we had other guests with basketball players who actually like football as well. But when they got into high school, basketball coaches like, no, you can't play football. You got to stick with basketball. What are your thoughts on coaches that don't allow their athletes to play another sport or specifically football?
Bunny, I'm picking up reverb on your mic. I couldn't make out what you were asking. I'm sorry. I apologize.
We'll try to get her connection right. We apologize, y'all, if y'all are hearing once again some lag or whatnot. Bunny, can you ask him your question again?
Is it still lagging? No. I was asking, what are your thoughts on high school coaches that tell the athletes they can't play? They can play basketball, baseball, whatever, but if they play any other sport, they just can't play football as well.
So high school high school coaches saying you can't play multiple sports. You just have to play one sport.
Right.
Okay. I think we've transitioned to that part, and I think that my stepsons played hockey. We experienced a little bit of that. It's tough to get kids off the ice on hockey. The coaches want to play year round. I think it's an individual decision for the kid and for the parents and everything else. Like I said, I would have thought I missed out on a whole lot if, and we didn't have year-round league actually in any sports, so there really wasn't an option for me. But I like how I grew up.
So speaking of high school, what high school did you attend?
Parkway North High School.
Okay. And what led you to go to Parkway North?
Well, that's just where we lived. I had thought about going to private school, and the Smet had a legendary coach at the time, Bob Christian. I had friends who went to the Smet. At the end of the day, they wanted to put the financial burden on my parents, and I couldn't have worked out better. I had great experience at Parkway North, lifelong friends, great coaches, including my football coach, Dennis Dobb, who I'm so close to this day. In fact, we talked on Tuesday night. So, I just can't say enough about my Parkway education and specifically my experience at Parkway North. It was fantastic.
And what sports did you play at Parkway North?
I played football, baseball, and then I played basketball through my sophomore year. And then it wasn't my sport. I was a little I was practical. I had a practical goal in mind. I needed to get a scholarship to college, really. And the best opportunity for that was football. So I figured after my sophomore year, my time in the winter was better spent in the gym trying to get bigger and stronger so I can get a football scholarship. And fortunately, that's what I did.
Nice, nice. So when you originally went to Parkway North, did you already bring some hype? Did people already know about you a little bit in regards to football wise, or did you have pretty much let everybody know, hey, I'm Steve Savard. let me introduce myself.
I played the game for a while, but I was really no phenom. I mean, back then everything was earned, and I was just like everybody else. And more experience playing the game than most of my teammates, having started at age 7. But it's kind of depressing starting over when I went to freshman football. We had 60 kids in the team, and only 2 of us didn't even play. And so after playing for 7 years in the junior football league, the first practice was kind of depressing. My mom picked me up, and she said, "How'd it go?" I said, "We may not win a game. Nobody knows how to play the game on my team." You learned, and like I said, I had a great experience.
What position did you play in regards to football and then baseball and basketball?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What position did you play?
I was a linebacker. I grew up playing running back and linebacker my whole life, and then I got switched to offensive guard and linebacker. And then in baseball, I was second baseman. I grew up playing shortstop and pitcher, but my arm kind of got thrown out as a teenager, and so I ended up making the position change to second base. And in basketball, I was just playing anything that I could get on the floor for 2 minutes for.
Not 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
That makes it up those 2 minutes too, huh?
Yeah, make the most. Yeah, maybe use all 5 fouls in 2 minutes. That's the kind of contribution I made.
So, Ms. Williams.
Well, thank you for those fouls.
Right. Thanks for your contributions. Ms. Williams says, in regards to your response back in regards to playing multiple sports, she said that makes sense to her, both as a biochemist, then she has in a parentheses not stressing one set of muscles. Then she has, and as a parent, letting your child experience multiple sports to see which one suits them best. She said that her son's father said that he was encouraged to play both football and basketball, primarily because basketball improved both his agility and his ball handling skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree, Bonnie. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And then she brought up in football Then, she asked me a question saying, was I encouraged myself to play multiple sports in college? Yes, I always was big on playing multiple sports. When I went to Harris-Sophie University, I played. I got a scholarship in all the sports, of all sports, should I say, got a scholarship in soccer. And then I played,
I could see you as a soccer player.
and then I played basketball also and baseball. So definitely was a multi-sport guy.
Nice.
So, how would you say your experience was overall? Did y'all have any state championships? Did y'all get close to a state championship in Parkway North?
No. We weren't fortunate enough. Don't know what it feels like to be a state champion. I had a lot of success growing up in the league. Really good teams, good coaches. We were very competitive. We didn't have a big roster, about 35 kids. We were undersized, but we scrapped and fought and came close to playoff berth both years, both my varsity years. But no, we did not. I don't know what it's like to be a state champion.
So tell us about, if you did, the recruiting process that you went through as a football player.
Well, it was, I was disappointed that I didn't get a Division I scholarship. I was a little bit undersized at the time, but I knew I would develop. I had a great work ethic. I loved being in the gym. And so I had some offers to walk on the Big Eight. Mizzou offered me, but they didn't offer me anything. They said, "You want to walk on a couple other schools?" I needed my college paid for, so I wanted to go somewhere where they wanted to give me a scholarship. So I had some schools in the Midwest here. She was in Northwest Missouri State Division II school in Maryville, Missouri, and it was the right decision for me. I played 4 years, team captain for 3 years. Made it to the NFL and had a good career. So it was a good decision for me. I don't regret it.
Nice. So we spoke about the recruiting process. We've had previous guests on our show who got drafted to the NBA or drafted to the NFL. How was that process for you getting drafted to the NFL?
I didn't get drafted. It was actually I signed as a free agent. The Dallas Cowboys signed me. I was expected to go. Back then in 1986, the draft was 12 rounds, and it was held in one day. It was a marathon day. Started at 7:30 in the morning, ended at about 12:30 the next morning.
Wow.
And I was projected to be a middle round draft pick. I got several phone calls from teams during the day. It just didn't work out, and terribly disappointed. But the good news is that at the end of the day, the next day, I had 5 or 6 or 7 teams who wanted to sign me as a free agent. And then it just comes down to a decision. You're not going to get rich off a free agent signing bonus. Everybody was offering about the same, about $10,000. And we were all playing for league minimum back then was $57,500. That's how different the game is today.
Wow.
But I chose the Cowboys. Yeah. That was the minimum in 1986, $57,500.
Jesus.
That's chump change compared to today.
Right. Shoot,
I think the minimum today in the NFL is somewhere around $400,000 a year. A lot's changed in 30 plus years. So, I wasn't a bonus baby. But those were the days where rosters were 45 men, not 53. There was no practice squad. So you're talking about every team 18 fewer spots. So it was kind of dog eat dog. And it was, a little bit more difficult to make an NFL roster back then. I got cut my first year, re-signed by the Cowboys, brought back, and everything's going great. In the second year of training camp, I suffered a really serious neck injury and spent that year in injured reserve. I couldn't pass any more physicals, and so I was kicked to the curb at age 24.
Ms. Williams says, Steve, do you think that the college and or pro recruitment process could be improved? And if so, how?
Well, I haven't been through it in so long. I don't know. It was, you're kind of at the mercy of who's recruiting you, if you can believe what they're telling you and everything else. So I don't know how things have changed. You'd have to talk to somebody who's in the game these days to know what that process is like. I'm sure it's nothing like it was 38 years ago when I was going through it as a high school kid.
Mm-hmm. So just go back in regard to your professional career. How many games did you play?
Well, I ended up playing preseason games over 2 years. Like I told you, I got cut in the final cuts my rookie year in '86, and then I was re-signed for '87, moved me outside linebacker, and with the training camp, I ended up having a compression fracture in my neck and nerve damage, and spent that year in injured reserve. So that was it. Not nearly the career I would have liked. More of a stint.
Okay, so how did you start the transition from professional football player to being a journalist?
I didn't know what I was going to do when I was kicked the curb, and I came home and I had a degree in journalism and English. My backup plan was to be a writer, sports writer, maybe a columnist, and my brother had gone to Broadcast Center in St. Louis. He got a job in radio in Joplin, Missouri. He had become a weather guy, the main weather anchor in Joplin. I came down and watched him for 2 or 3 days, and I was close to becoming a police officer. I was going to go to the Missouri Highway Patrol Academy. And my brother said, watch the sports guy here. You can do this. And he taught me to go to Broadcast Center. And in 1989, I became the first person at Broadcast Center to actually get placed in television. I went to Billings, Montana. It was my first job in TV in 1989 for the whopping total of $12,000 a year. So that's how I got involved. If I hadn't visited my brother that weekend down in Joplin, I probably wouldn't be in business I've been in the last 30 years.
Wow.
And as they say, the rest is history.
That's right.
I can visit you and start to visit you as a high school.
I'm sorry, I couldn't make that out.
I'm sorry. You said with your brother, you were thinking about being a highway patrolman?
Yes.
I kind of envisioned you like that, but I'm like, I'm so used to your TV personality, so I was like, I don't see you being a patrolman.
Well, there are a lot of people that knew me growing up and think it was strange that I chose the profession I did. I was not particularly, I wasn't the guy that walked into a house for like a party. But for me, it was I tried to elect the party's center of attention. But for me, it was about journalism, and I had a lot of journalism training in my background. I was a writer in high school. I was the editor-in-chief of my newspaper in college. While I was playing college football, I was also the sports editor of the college paper. So I was prepared to be a writer. I just fell into sportscasting and being on TV almost as an accident, as an aside at the 11th hour. I'm certainly glad I did. It's worked out well.
Nice.
So you have a top 3 list or top 5 list of the greatest St. Louis sports moments that you have?
I just heard top 5 list. What is it?
Oh, she was asking, do you have a top 5 list of your greatest moments in sports that you have covered?
Oh, wow. That's a good question, man. It's, in no particular order, I think the Rams' 99 season, it came out of nowhere. Being in the Georgia Dome, to cover that and document it on my Sunday night show afterwards was exhilarating. The next day, the parade was amazing. And, Cardinals parades and World Series are great. They're on that list too, but we kind of expect the Cardinals to be competitive. St. Louis between the Cardinals and the Rams until 99 had not had any success whatsoever. Not in terms of winning a Super Bowl. So that was pretty special. I got to tell you, the Blues breaking through last year and winning the Stanley Cup after 52 years
Man,
certainly makes the list. Game 7, covering the watch party at Enterprise Center, and then the parade a few days later. The parade was just insane. And I think the ability, the thrill of calling a Super Bowl. In my second year in the booth as the voice of the Rams, I called the Rams Patriots Super Bowl. Now, that would have made it a little higher on my list had the Rams won the game.
right.
We all know what a bitter disappointment that was. But I can't deny it was a thrill to be able to call a Super Bowl in just my second year as a play-by-play guy. So those are certainly in the top 5.
So as you got started into broadcasting and the journalism, what would you say was like your biggest breakthrough that, okay, I finally got into this career?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I think I was always pushing to move up until I got to St. Louis. I never tried to get back to St. Louis when I started. I went to Billings, Montana, 8 months. Went to El Paso, Texas, got out of there in 2.5 years. Went to Hartford, Connecticut. And none of those places felt like it was going to be my final spot. I was still moving up. And then the opportunity to come to St. Louis fell into my lap. And I think that was when I really thought, okay, I found a home. I'm back home. My parents can watch their kid 5 nights a week on TV. They got to live 16 years. And I think getting to St. Louis was probably the big break. And even though I wasn't trying to get to St. Louis at the time.
Ms. Williams asks, you still aspire to be a sports writer? If so, for which publication/organization would you be a contributor?
Do I aspire to be a sportscaster?
A sports writer.
A sports writer? No, I do enjoy it. Here's where I can apply the writing ability is I think that over the years I've become a better storyteller in journalism. And one of the things I'm really proud of in the last year or so at the station, we started a weekly segment where we highlight veteran service stories and a great affinity for veterans, people who serve our country in uniform. And I serve on the board of directors for Greater St. Louis Honor Flight. And it's been fun to be able to tell those stories. And I think, at 56, I still think I have some gas left in the tank as a broadcaster. And other things I think that I do okay is writing. I think being able to tell a story is a lot of fun. And I take a lot of pride in trying to bring some joy and pride to the veterans and their families that we feature.
Nice. Once again, this is the platform Sports Talk Show. I am your boy Smooth, along with, and we have special guests.
It's still lag, so you probably didn't hear it.
Oh, yeah, I do hear a little lag here. Sorry about that once again, everybody. And we also have special guests. Oh, not sure you can hear
Guys,
me.
I lost audio.
Can you hear us now?
I do hear you now.
Okay, there we go. Let's try it again. I am your boy Smooth, along with Bunny, and along with our special guest.
I lost you for a second.
Uh-oh. Sorry, y'all. Thank you, Zoom. We're trying to act funny on us right now, so keep on going. We do have special guest support. For those watching on Facebook, if y'all was watching under my watch party and you're leaving the comments right now, I cannot see it. Please make sure that you go to our page on Facebook, and you will be able to leave comments just like Ms. Williams, and we can go ahead and interact with you and continue this wonderful conversation with our special guest, Steve Savard. So, continue on with broadcasting, Steve. You know, in St. Louis, we've been blessed with having people like Jack Buck. Joe Buck last week was announced as a Hall of Fame inductee coming up in the NFL. Harry Carey. Look at Kevin Harlan. So much talent that we have here in the state of Missouri. Did you have any influences as you was coming up your time as a broadcaster and also as a journalist?
You know, being a racer, I had no idea that I would be in this business. This was the last thing in the world I would ever do. But like many people immersed in sports, I recognized how many great sportscasters we had in this town. You mentioned Jack Buck, Dan Kelly, maybe the greatest guy to call hockey in North America. Bob Starr, one of the all-time great radio play-by-play guys. Bob Costas was here. Gary Bender started here. So many, and I had great admiration for them, but they weren't inspirations to me. I was fixed on being a professional athlete and fixed on specifically playing in the NFL. So the guys that inspired me when I was a kid, the former St. Louis football Cardinal players. And what's been cool being back home for 26 years is I've become friends with some of them, some of the people that inspired me to want to be an NFL player. So those were more my influences than any broadcasters when I was growing up here.
Nice. So I know that previously, when I was younger, watching the Rams when they came into St. Louis, Mike Bush was the main play-by-play guy at that time. And then I believe you said after the 99 season, that was when you started coming into your own. Was there ever any competition, like personal competition, or was this all respect and love in between you and Mike Bush? Because both of y'all were at the same time, sports directors for y'all respective companies at that time. So were there any competition? Because the people, St. Louis be talking, even to this day, about, oh, this guy here, that guy there. And then for you to end up taking his play-by-play, not taking like, I want, it's mine now, but you replaced him. How was that respect, or how was that, how was what's what I want to say, how much love was between you and Mike Bush?
Relationship.
Right.
Mike and I have been competing against each other since I got here. And I can tell you this, Mike got a head start here in this market. And I have immense respect for Mike. And it's been both a blessing and a challenge to compete against Mike all these years. We competed head-to-head in sports. We've competed head-to-head as a news anchors. And in Mike's year as the broadcaster, the Rams play-by-play guy, I was on the broadcast myself. I was doing pregame, halftime, and we got along great. It was Mike's booth that year. When my duties were over before the game or halftime, I got out of there and got out of Mike's hair. He had a job to do. And, hopefully Mike would say the same thing. There was mutual respect between us. For whatever reason, Mike decided to step away after the 99 season. And management at the radio station encouraged me to apply, and I was going to anyway. And it was a blessing. We had 16 years. But when the news broke last week that I was leaving cable, Mike was among the classiest who put out something on social media. Doesn't surprise me. I think there's been a healthy mutual respect between us. And I think that's one thing people don't really understand is I think, especially in the sports broadcasting community, a lot of guys pull for each other. I mean, there's some competition, but there's also a lot of camaraderie. And I've always been a guy that believes that, look, you compete. If you win, great. If you don't, then don't take on the guy that beats you. Figure out a way to get your game, raise your game. And Mike's been a worthy adversary all these years for me. It really has.
Right. And Ms. Williams, I'm going to say.
You all sounded like how. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to say, Ms. Williams, we're going to save that question for later on. I definitely will bring that question back up for Steve Savard very soon. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bunny.
What I was going to say is that Mike Bush and Steve Savard, you all are like rivals. But you know how like the baseball players and basketball players compete hard against each other without the court, a lot of their friends, or at least they can coexist. This is what it sounds like you and Mike's relationship.
Johnny, I'm sorry. I just can't make out. I'm getting repeat on your voice, and I just can't make out most of what you're asking me. I apologize.
She was kind of bringing up like a basketball or football analogy with rivals. You both competing for the same thing, but pretty much after it's all said and done, it's all love. Y'all supporting each other. You know, y'all may shake hands, talk, etc. Is that something that you would say you and Mike Bush went through during those times?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't. You know, we'd run into each other. We'd be cordial. We're not. We haven't spent a lot of time socializing and friends away from work or away from seeing each other. But when we do see each other, it's always cordial. And you know, it's raised my game. You know, since I came to St. Louis in 1994, to have to compete against Mike. You know, and hopefully he feels the same way. And so, certainly there's a rivalry, but I think there's a respect there too.
Yeah. So, what station before the Rams broadcast moved over to 101 ESPN? What station was Rams broadcast on at that right when you started coming in?
103.3.
That's right, it was. I couldn't recall the station. And then 101 ESPN came into play, and one of my favorite segments that I always look forward to on 101 ESPN in the fast lane was when I heard the rock music come on and Savard says. I used to love that segment.
Yeah. we got some mileage. We got some mileage out of that. Yeah. When every once in a while when somebody brings that up right here, it brings a smile on my face. Those were good times over there.
Yeah, and I said before to you pre-show that I've had Anthony Starter on the show, Kevin Wheeler, Austin Huff, so shouts out to him. But just tell us your time spending with 101 ESPN.
It was great. You know, our broadcast executive producer, Haas Newport, became a good friend. Just like when I worked for 103.3, Jim Stassi and I were good friends. I worked for really good people in radio over the years, Dennis Lammy, Mike Wheeler. And at 101, John Kowski, who's the general manager. John was the kind of guy that let you do your job, gave you the resources to succeed, didn't try to micromanage, gave you direction, and then let you go do your job. So, and, you know, when 101 started, what a great roster of talent. A lot of my friends over there. You get Bernie Miklasz, Randy Carricker, who's, you know, the mainstay over there.
Right.
Bob Ramsey. DeMarco was on the air. DeMarco was a fixture in the fast lane in the afternoons. Chris Duncan, when he retired from baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony has turned into, you know, Anthony at one time was producing the fast lane.
Right.
And I knew that if he got the chance to be on air, he'd knock it out of the park. The guy's just knowledgeable. He works his butt off. And he's been great. He's doing great in his chosen career. So there's been a lot of talent over there over the years. Kevin Wheeler as well. And, you know, it was just a great place to work. I've been very fortunate that the two companies I worked for while broadcasting Rams games both treated me in a first-class manner.
Now, you brought up earlier how in your second year you was a part of broadcasting Super Bowl. Let's just, in general, talk about those good old days of the greatest show on turf. You being able to be in that position to be able to call some incredible games, incredible moments, and being around incredible players.
Oracle.
Well, Smooth, you hit it, man. I was fortunate. I stepped into at a time when the Rams were the toast of the NFL. Every Sunday, you knew you were getting your money's worth. Win, lose, or draw, and most of the time it was win. I stepped in and I had two 500-point seasons. The Rams scored 500 points in 3 straight seasons. I got 2 of them. I called NFC Championship victory and a Super Bowl in my second year. It was an incredible time. Mike Martz coined the phrase special time, special place, and it really was. I had one of my best friends in the world was my broadcast partner the first 6 years, Jack Snow.
Yes.
And, you know, Jack used to marvel at it. Jack has been around the NFL his whole life. Was a first-round draft pick, played for 10 years for the LA Rams. And there were times in the timeouts or sometimes even in the middle of games where he'd look to me and he'd say, Sevy, you know, it's not supposed to be this easy. It's not supposed to be this fun. The Rams were making this look like and the shame of it is that I think that the window closed too soon, and that team was talented enough to win 2 or 3 Super Bowls, not
Right.
one.
Right.
And I think that the direction of the franchise would have been completely different had they beaten the Patriots in Super Bowl 36. But my memories are great because that team was not only fun, it was not only exciting, it was a great group of grown men, great guys to deal with, high character guys. And it was really, Mike was right when he said special time, special place. My memories are so good of those years.
Who would you say, in regards to or from the Rams organization, would you say it was just the ultimate pleasure of always being around with and getting anecdotes or just getting great stories from?
Well, I mean, who wasn't? I said that was a great group of guys. DeMarco Farr was always pretty special. When the moment he came to town with the Rams in '95, he and I developed a rapport and a friendship, and then later he and I became broadcast partners for 7 years. Kurt Warner was the classiest superstar athlete I've ever seen in terms of being accommodating with his time with not only the media but with fans. In those days when the team would pull into the hotel on the road on Saturday afternoon, the day before the game, there were hundreds of fans lined up in the opposing city and wanting to get autographs and everything else. Kurt Warner would stand there, whether it was outside the hotel, in the lobby. I've even seen him signing for an hour, and then somebody pursued him into the lobby bathroom to ask him to sign one more autograph. And Kurt never said no to anybody. I mean, I've never seen a guy with so many demands on his time be that gracious. But, it was a team full of good guys. And I could go on and on and on. And, later one of my favorites, Steven Jackson, got to know Steven. God bless Steven. I mean, you talk about a guy that gave it all in sometimes impossible situations. I mean, this guy was a warrior each and every Sunday. And I just think about how much greater his statistics would have been had he played on better football teams through most of his career. But so it's just been a pleasure. Got to know Mark Bolger. Torrey Holt's one of my all-time favorites. Grant Wistrom, you name it, up and down the line. Chris Long, James Laurinaitis, quality guys.
And speaking of James Laurinaitis, our deepest condolences to him and his family, losing his father. Was that this morning or yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday.
I believe it was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, yesterday. So our condolences to him losing his father, James. John Laurinaitis. Great guy. What was his name? Was it Animal from the WWF back in the day?
Animal, yeah, Animal, and his dad was Animal, and I think Hawk was his godfather. So Animal and Hawk.
Yeah. So once again, our condolences to the Laurinaitis family. So continuing on, as you brought up the good old days, is there a specific call that you can bring up that you just like it would just never leave your mindset?
Boy, at one point I would have hoped it would have been maybe a game-winning field goal in Super Bowl 36. Unfortunately, it was the Patriots who kicked the game-winning Super Bowl field goal, so that didn't work out. I think I never really tried to practice the signature call. I tried to just let things flow freely, and I think many of the calls that are most memorable involved Marshall Faulk. I mean, this was a special athlete. He was the guy that took a talented Rams team and offense and put it over the top. He was the ultimate matchup nightmare. He changed the way the game was played. He changed the way the opponents in the division drafted to try to defend him for a period of years. And, I just remember saying one time, I think it was in New Orleans, the season finale in 2000, the Rams had to get in and hope for help to make the playoffs, and they did. And Marshall Faulk put the team on his back that day, rushing for 220 yards against a very good defense. And I think I just remember blurting out, forget the big red S, Superman wears the 2 and 8 on his chest. And I've heard that replayed in some NFL films, pieces. And I think one other time, Mike Martz was having one of these ultimately creative days of calling and coordinating his offense. I think it was 2001 at the Jets. they had drafted Trump candidate, first round pick out of
yeah.
Arizona. He was a speedster. Thought maybe at one point he'd be the successor to Marshall Faulk. Didn't have a lot of great days, but he ran from 195 against the Jets in a lopsided win at the Meadowlands. And on one play, they ran like a speed option. They gave him the pitch, and then they let him run a pitch. He pitched it to Oz Hakeem. He went around the corner and scored a touchdown. And I just remember saying, MO'd up defensive coordinators, anything is possible. We had never seen an offense like that. And so I try not to script anything, but those are a couple of moments that stand out to me, yeah.
And early, I want to make a correction. Earlier I said John Laurinaitis, but it's actually Joseph Laurinaitis. So I just want to make sure that I say the correct name. So going back, as you brought up Trump candidate and you brought up that touchdown, I recall the year after they won the Super Bowl and the Rams had their brand new uniforms. I believe their first game of the season was against the Broncos, and it was a Monday Night Football game. And that incredible punt return, kickoff return touchdown by Oz Hakeem and Torrey Holt, and they both looking at each other like, yeah. That was like the coolest thing to see. The very first game of the season, like, you know what, this team is gonna do something special again.
Yeah, that's a great memory because that was Mike Martz's first game as a head coach.
Right.
And Oz and Torrey are running down the field like it's, there's nobody even in sight.
Right.
There's no defender within 10 yards. And it was kind of symbolic of the season because the Rams were dynamic on offense that year until Kurt Warner got hurt in Kansas City in the 7th game. And the defense had trouble stopping people. I believe the final score of that game was 41-36. And it was kind of indicative of how the season went. The Rams had to outscore everybody. Smooth, through 6 games, the Rams are averaging 44 points a game. They're on pace to shatter every team record. And then Kurt broke his finger on an errant snap up in Kansas City in Week 7. Yep. And Trent Green came in and played very good football. I think his quarterback rating was 100. But the dynamic that they had going at that time, I think that would have gone down in history had Kurt stayed healthy as the greatest. I mean, as great as the other years were, the greatest single season on record in the National Football League. They were just doing things. Well, they put 57 points on the Chargers in Week 6 at the Dome. Mike Martz came out and threw the ball the first 17 plays for scrimmage. Who does that? But
right.
He knew he had mismatches all over the football field, and he exploited it. That day, they could have scored 70 or 80 if Mike didn't pull the foot off the accelerator.
And you brought up Trent Green. We all know what happened that night against the Chargers in the preseason game. Do you feel personally, from your perspective, that he would have brought the same that Kurt Warner did if he didn't get hurt?
I don't know, but I know this. He was playing at a high level in the preseason. We were all excited. And then you remember the devastation when he went down. I mean, right. I don't believe in curses, but I was sitting there in the press box, and as they're carting him off with an obvious season-ending knee injury, I thought, maybe this team really is cursed. We didn't know anything about Kurt Warner.
Right.
I don't know that Trent went on to play in Pro Bowls and have a magnificent career. I don't know if he would have played as well as Kurt did that year. For a 3 or 4 year period, I would say this: the greatest deep ball passer I've ever seen in my lifetime was Dan Marino. I think for 3 or 4 years, Kurt Warner went on pace with that. It didn't matter if it was Torrey, Isaac, Oz, Marshall. Anything that went deep, he hit him in stride. Nobody ever had to break stride. And for 3 or 4 years, Kurt was just unbelievable. So it's a hard question to answer. What's really great, Smooth, is because Trent is one of the all-time great guys. And if he didn't get a chance after that to resurrect his career after having the knee injury, he would have been ashamed, but he did. He went to Kansas City, played for Dick Vermeil, played in a couple Super Bowls, and proved that he was really an elite quarterback too. So I'm happy for him. But it's hard to say. But I will tell you this: that was magic for 3 years watching the Rams offense.
And something that I've always loved when I watched the Rams game, especially when you had John Madden and Pat Summerall, rest in peace. But John Madden, he was so big on how Kurt Warner used to have that window, and he just knew how to use that little window and have that precise passing. It was just so magical. Maybe it was the experience from him being in the Arena League and then playing overseas for a season or two, but he just knew how to hit that
Right.
window when others had a hard time doing that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think maybe you hit on the head. Maybe his experience as an Iowa Barnstormer in the Arena Football League and then playing in the World League of Football across the pond, maybe that helped. But Mike Martz always said the greatest, I don't care how strong your arm is, the greatest attribute a quarterback can have is to be accurate.
Yeah.
And you're right. In those years, Kurt Warner consistently threaded the needle. And you know, this is what's really amazing. Well, two things. I think the most overrated and overlooked thing about Kurt was his toughness in the pocket.
Right.
He would routinely stand in and hold the ball for an extra second, knowing he was going to get blasted, so he could wait that extra second for someone to pop open. The touchdown pass that won the Super Bowl against the Titans, classic example. Javon Curse is bearing down. He's already got a cracked rib. He knows he's going to get splattered, hangs in there and throws a perfect rainbow to Isaac Bruce. Rams win the Super Bowl. He was just, you know, he was uncanny, and it was something prepared him for sure, because he didn't look like a guy that didn't have any NFL experience in 1999 when he was pressed into duty.
And Ms. Williams says, I love to listen to John Madden. He explained the game for people like me who didn't know all the details of the game. Yes, he did. I used to love how he would say, you know, whop and wham and have a little illustration on the board and everything. I love it.
Well, you know, he broadcast like a lot of us talk and watch the game. You know, he sounded like one of us, only with decades of NFL experience as a coach and understanding. I mean, he didn't talk down to people. He talked at fans' level. And I think that was part of he was just like every guy. And I think that was part of his charm and his appeal. And, you know, he had one hell of a broadcast career.
How would you describe Dick Vermeil? Because we've seen him as the emotional, always in tears guy, but he knew how to get his guys going as well. Everyone respected him. How would you describe Dick Vermeil?
Well, you know, you've got a pretty good grasp. What a quality man. I mean, he inspired his players. His players loved him. He was a taskmaster now. He was an old school guy now. Rams training camps under Dick Vermeil were not for the meek and timid. I mean, this was old school stuff. And this was before the days of, you know, we knew a lot about head injuries and CTE, but you know, training camps were back in the day. The two I experienced under Tom Landry, similar to what Dick Vermeil ran, very physical, very demanding. He believed in having a tough, hard-nosed football team. But after 2 seasons, it wasn't working. And what I think Dick Vermeil should ultimately get great credit for at age 62 was changing the way he coached and changing a little bit of his philosophy. It's not easy when you've done something one way your whole life and you're 62 years of age. But he started giving players a little bit of ownership in how they practiced. Mike Jones, who saved the Super Bowl with the tackle, one of the all-time great guys that I've encountered in sports, he was kind of the team liaison. And Mike could go to Dick in 99, unlike in previous years, and say, hey, Coach, can we consider doing this or maybe taking pads off once in a while? And, you know, to Dick Vermeil's credit, he listened. He didn't say yes to everything, but he did, you know, he did change his approach in some ways, which is difficult, and it worked perfectly. But I will tell you this, you talk to Mike Jones, you talk to Grant Wisdom, you talk to DeMarco Farr, talk to any of them. None of those guys wanted to let down Dick Vermeil. They wanted to run through a brick wall for him. And I think that's to me, in this day and age, things have changed, but I think great coaches have the ability to inspire players. Mike Martz always said, a player will keep tuning you in as long as he thinks you're going to make him a better player and make him more money. But when he stops believing in your ability to make him better, he'll tune you out. So you have to be able to coach guys and teach them. You also have to be able to inspire them. And I think that's what Dick Vermeil did better than anybody else at that time, inspire his players to want to win.
do you feel deep down inside that Vermeil regrets leaving right after the Super Bowl and not staying maybe a few years later with the Rams?
He admitted as much. He even admitted we had him on in the 2000 season. He was back in the middle of the season, and we had him on the broadcast with Jackson O and I during a game. And I put that question to him, and he said, "Yeah, I do. I think I was probably a little too emotional when I stepped away." And then the proof of that is in the offseason, he took the Kansas City job. So he was only out 1 year.
Right.
And then when he took the job in the winter or spring of 2001 in Kansas City, I went up there to cover the press conference for Channel 4. And I asked him the question again, and he said, definitely. I probably made my decision to step away too hastily and with some emotion. If I had sat on my emotions a little while longer, I probably would have coached at least a little more year. And, I'm glad he got back in the game because he had a nice run in Kansas City.
Mr. Williams says, do you think the current concerns about CTE at both the college and high school and pro level has changed how teams practice and play?
Oh, 100%. Miss Williams, and no question. I mean, I sound like an old guy, but I am 56. All I know is I went through 2 old school training camps under Tom Landry. It was combat every single day for 3 hours in the morning. That's not really the best way to go through it. And training camps have changed dramatically. You don't have a lot of contact anymore. You're limited by how many days you can wear full pads. What we've learned through the studies of CTE is that it's not just the one big blow you experience that does the damage. It's the repetitive banging on the head. And that's why you have to dial back stuff, what you do in practice and alter the routines. And I think it's hurt the game a little bit. I don't think teams are ready out of the gate to start the season in September playing their best football, even when there are preseason games. But I think it's just what you have to do to protect players. I mean, this is about life and death. The average NFL career is 2.73 years, whatever it is. You got the rest of your life to live, and I just think it makes sense what you have to do. But training camps today don't resemble anything like they did even 20 years or 15 years ago.
And I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any questions. Bunny, did you have any questions for Steve?
I did. Regarding all this Rams football that you were touching on, the greatest show on turf. Once the greatest show on turf is dismantled, is it specifically on ownership the reason why the Rams never panned out to anything close to the greatest show on turf?
So you're asking about the breakup of the greatest show on turf?
Right.
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good question. It's an insightful question. It's hard to answer. I just think, you had, at one point, you had everyone pulling together in the organization. I think that Super Bowl loss, the Patriots kind of splintered the organization. It's a shame. I think that window should have been extended for a lot longer than it was. It's hard to know. I mean, I think everybody contributed. At one point, the general manager, head coach, GM, owner, everybody was on the same page, and that didn't always seem to be the issue or the case after the Super Bowl loss to the Patriots. So, an awful lot went right in that era, but there's no question in my mind that loss splintered the organization. And they still had some good moments. 2003 was a season in which they could have easily made it to the Super Bowl. They lost a heartbreaker in double overtime in the playoffs at home to Carolina.
Oh, man.
2004 was a playoff year, but after that, the run was really over. And the problem was that I think ownership was fooling itself to thinking that they could extend the run of the greatest show on turf for a few more years into 2006, 7, and beyond, when they really should have been trying to reinvent the football team and going in a different direction. I mean, get rid of guys, but you weren't going to be able to do the success you had 5 or 6 years early.
So we have gone through a few coaches after Vermeil. Of course, Mike Mortz, Scott Linehan, Steve Spagnuolo. And you have coaches who started off as offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. We know what Mike Martz was. To me, I know he had that great run that he did going to the Super Bowl in his second year. But do you feel that now that you've been gone for a while, do you feel that he was better off as focusing on an offensive coordinator than being the head coach?
Well, not really. I think, the problem was the Rams were so successful so quickly for those 3 years. And they came out of nowhere, and they were supposed to the NFL. The bar was set so high. I remember Jack Snow and I used to do a radio show twice a week in addition to broadcasting. And, in the 2003 season, for example, they ended up winning 12 games. They went 12-4 and won the division.
Mm-hmm.
But, it seemed like some Rams fans wanted style points in addition to winning games. Well, they weren't quite the same team. And winning 12 games in the NFL season is nothing to turn your nose up against. But we used to say, don't take any of this stuff for granted. And Mike's overall record, I think, as a head coach was 56-36. That's pretty impressive when you compare it to what happened after he left. And the Rams went through the worst 5-year period in modern NFL history with a 15-65 record. There was a 3-year home record of 2 wins and 22 losses. Now think about that. And I did the math at one point. The average loss in those years was 21 points at home. So your team's getting whacked every week at home. My point is that 56-36 at the time didn't seem like unbelievable success, but I do remember warning people, be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Because this isn't automatic. And when you consider the Rams won 11 straight seasons at the end without a winning record, 56-36 sounds like a pretty darn good record.
And it was fun to watch during that time.
Well, that's the other thing is that there were a lot of memorable Sundays, even in losses. Sometimes the losses, you tore your hair out. Sometimes you'd be frustrated. But the Rams under Mike Martz were rarely boring.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, with that being said,
let me
go ahead, Bunny.
ask him this for me. If he watched the Last Dance documentary, and if he did, what are 2 takeaways from it?
I got it. Wow. My first takeaway is I always believed Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player ever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think there's a line of demarcation under 40 and over 40. A lot of people under 40 think it's LeBron James. Over 40, like me, think it's Michael Jordan. I think LeBron is second, by the way.
Okay.
But my takeaway was I'm a Celtics fan because in the early 70s, JoJo White,
Oh, yeah.
former McKinley High School star,
St.
was a
Louis.
star for the Celtics. So I became a fan of the Celtics because there's my St. Louis guy. And then they drafted others, and then they had Larry Bird, and so that secured my fandom, and I'm still a Celtics fan. So I didn't have any affinity for the Bulls, but I had ultimate respect for Michael Jordan. And I think that when you go back, here's one of my takeaways, Bunny, and I kind of felt this at the time. It's easy to pick and choose and say he should have said this or should have done this. The demands on Michael Jordan, I talked about Kurt Warner's demands. The demands on Michael Jordan's time were unbelievable. For how long? For 10, 12 years. And very rarely was there a controversy. Michael very rarely said something that put his teammates in a bad spot. Every once in a while, he had to give someone a kick in the butt. He did it.
Right.
You know what? That's just the price you pay for playing with the greatest guy of all time who lifts you to 6 championships. You just live with it. You just live with a cranky word or two once in a while. But I thought he handled himself magnificently through most of his career, and that kind of confirmed it for me. The other thing was I didn't really realize, I kind of knew it, I didn't realize how much Jerry Krause, the general manager, was hated by not just Scottie Pippen, but by extension his teammates because of the way Pippen was treated. And so I think it's remarkable that there was that level of dysfunction within the organization, and they still managed to go on 2 different 3-peat championship runs. And by the way, guys, Scottie Pippen, I got a preview in 1984. We were playing a college football game on a Saturday night at Central Arkansas. We were killing time up in the gym before the game, before we went out for pregame warm-ups. And we're watching this 2-on-2 game break out in the gym at Central Arkansas University in Conway, Arkansas.
Nice.
And I'm watching this guy freak on these guys. I mean, he is going over guys. I'm thinking to myself, I know this is an NAIA school. I know this isn't Duke. It's not North Carolina, but this guy is unbelievable. So one of the guys walking around the gym was one of the basketball team's trainers. We called him over, and I said, hey, does that guy play for this university? He said, yeah, and he's only a freshman. Maybe he was a sophomore then. He'll be in the NBA. I said, well, I don't doubt that. What's his name? The guy says, Scottie Pippen. And nobody ever heard of him at that time. And so I'm not surprised from that Saturday afternoon watching this guy and his talents that he went on and had a great career. But you know what I think is significant? That dynasty occurred without a great Hall of Fame big man. At that time, there were no dynasties in the NBA without a Hall of Fame center. Mm-hmm. Without a guy playing the 5 position who was on his way to the Hall of Fame. And Michael Jordan didn't need that. You know, he had Scottie Pippen, then in the second run, they picked up Dennis Rodman. But I think Michael Jordan did more with less as far as winning 6 championships than anybody else could have.
So as you brought up Jordan and how he had to, say certain things to guys behind the scenes, which we found out on The Last Dance, who do you feel was that guy for the Rams?
Oh, man. Wow, what a great question. You mean during the greatest show on turf, Ron?
Yes.
Wow, man. I just think they had so much leadership. I don't know that there was I know Mike Jones in the 99 season took a lot of leadership. As I said, he was the liaison between the players and Dick Vermeil. I don't know that they, I don't know that there was any one guy that stood out. And if there is, it didn't register with me. But at that time, everybody was on the same page. And so there was really no dysfunction in the organization like the Bulls were experiencing with their whole roster hating their general manager. Although you got to give Jerry Krause credit, and he put together rosters 2 different times to win 3 straight championships. So he's got to get some sort of credit.
Now, of course, when the Rams were scoring like crazy, everyone was loving it. It was the biggest thing in town. It was the hottest thing ever. Everyone wanted to mimic the Rams. But then all of a sudden, they had this reputation of being soft. Why do you feel they had that reputation?
Well, I think because people were looking to try to justify it. Look, the Rams burst on the scene and nobody could stop them, figure them out. I think it made some teams feel better as they were running up the points and scoring 35 or 40 points. They they can't play smash mouth football. Well, why do you need to? We're kicking your butt anyway, and we're winning championships, and we're going to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. But I think it was a little bit justification. But here's the deal. There were times when Mike Martz did change the way he. The best example I can figure out is the NFC Championship game in 2001 against the Eagles. They were trailing at halftime, and the Eagles were having success defending the pass. So they get the opening kickoff. Mike Martz decides he's going to let Marshall Faulk loose. Called 9 running plays. Kurt Warner handled the ball 9 straight times. They went in the end zone, took the lead on the opening drive, and then never gave up the lead. So there were times when if they needed to get, Marshall Faulk during that whole era averaged about 1,350 yards a season and about 5.3 yards per carry. So when they needed to run the ball, they could. So to answer your question, Smooth, I think it just made other teams that were getting their butts kicked feel better by trying to find a flaw.
So now, after Mike Martz, I brought him up earlier. Scott Linehan, Steve Spagnuolo, and then of course Jeff Fisher. But before Jeff Fisher, the Scott Linehan era, Steve Spagnuolo, we know how the crowd, the energy was at the Dome. They would always say that you can almost feel the whole Dome shaking because of that Rams offense and how much they were winning. What was it like during that Linehan and Spagnuolo era?
Well, look, hey, there were some long seasons here. I mean, let's don't sugarcoat this. The Linehan era opened with, they finished the 06 season, his first year, with 3 straight wins, and they were playing good football. And everybody was optimistic going into 07. They finished 8-8, and then 07, nothing happened. 07 was a horrible offensive year. 08 was a horrible offensive year. 09 was a horrible offensive year. 10 was promising, Sam Bradford's rookie year. But then in 11, they lost their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, and Pat Shurmur. I'm sorry, they lost Pat Shurmur.
Right. And
then Bradford got hurt, sprained his ankle in 11. So this team really struggled offensively during most of that run. So it was a combination of bad offense, and also the team did not draft well for a number of years. They squandered a lot of first-round picks. You got to hit on your first and second and third-round picks. I mean, you got to do it. And they had too many misses in those eras.
So did. Too many misses. You brought up Sam Bradford. Would you say he is number one on the top of the board of, if he was healthy, we could have went further?
Oh, I agree. I think so. I mean, look, in 2010, in 09, the Rams were so bad. I mean, they just were. I mean, there were games where they were forced to play not to get blown out, because some of those games they were struggling so bad at halftime. Jim Hannafin or DeMarco Farr and I would have a bet how many times are they going to cross the 50-yard line in the second half. And then Sam comes in 2010. No, that's the truth, Smooth. I mean, it was rough. And then in 2010, Sam comes in and has a great year relative to where they'd been. And even though it was a bad division that year, they go to Seattle in Week 17 on a Sunday night winner-take-all game and had a chance to win the division. And that just doesn't happen with many rookies. Mm-hmm. So I think he got hurt in 2011. That was a waste of a year. And then Jeff Fisher's first year with Brian Schottenheimer's coordinator in 12, Sam had another great year. The division had become the best in football. They had the best division record that year, 4-1-1. If you remember, they beat the 49ers in overtime and tied them in overtime. And that was the year the 49ers came with a whisker of winning the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then Sam got hurt again in 13. So I think Sam was on his way to, maybe not a Hall of Fame career, but really a very good and strong NFL career. He had everything: big arm, accuracy, smart. I think injuries got in the way, and it's just a shame because the guy just could not stop. He went to Minnesota, played in a great game. A couple years later, played a great first 2 games. Then he got hurt. It's just the injuries just followed and ruined his career.
Yeah. And I meant to bring him up earlier, but you brought up Mark Bolger. You have to say that because of the O-line or lack of an O-line, that just mentally took his game away.
Oh, I agree. And I think physically it took a toll, too, because it took a beating a lot of times. Mark was remarkably accurate. I mean, this guy could throw the ball on a dime. He unfortunately, I don't think he really does. He got all the props and credit deserved. It's hard to follow a legend, man, and he had to follow Kurt Warner. And there was controversy mixed in. I mean, Kurt started getting hurt his hand in New York in the opener in 2002, and when Mark played, he played pretty well and was very, very accurate. But you make a great point. Those offensive lines from probably 05, 06 through 9, they left a lot to be desired. And I think it was tough for Mark to succeed. But I think not only mentally, I think he took a physical beating as well. But Mark Bolger was a very, very accurate quarterback.
So now the hype was building after Spagnuolo was gone and the whispers of Jeff Fisher. So he arrives, and you see what happens. Pretty much mediocre seasons each go around. And I know that you had your interviews with him. Like it was like every week that you had an interview with him or something like that. How tired were you?
Every coach, yeah.
How tired were you of always hearing like the same answers pretty much every week about we're going to get better. We're going to get better. But you never saw them get over the hump.
Well, no, they didn't. You're right. That's true. I think two of the three phases of the game under Jeff were playoff caliber. Special teams and defense.
Right.
Offense. But I think, again, one of the reasons Jeff took the job is because he thought he had a franchise quarterback in place in Sam Bradford. He had Brian Schottenheimer in that 2012 season as a coordinator. Ryan left. Sam got hurt. I think Jeff just never found the right coordinator after Schotty left. And I will say this, though. You know, in that 11-year run, there were 1 in 15 seasons. There were 2 in 14 seasons, 3 in 13 seasons. It's unfortunate that 7 and 9 has kind of become a punchline, and it has. But in the last 11 years, Smooth and Bunny, 7 and 9 represented the glory years. I mean, think about it. They were competitive. They would lose some games that would frustrate you because they were capable of winning, but they were at least competitive. That was not the case in the 6 years prior to Jeff arriving.
So how would you explain, from your perspective, of course, your daily routine of going to the Dome and getting ready for broadcasting the game?
I put in, 6 to 8 hours of preparation, doing charts, research. That involved being at Rams Park on Monday with a coaches show, being back on Wednesday, talking to players and coaches, being there again on Friday, having a coaches interview, and then, if it was a noon game, we'd get down there. I'd get down there about 9 o'clock, set up, go back over. All my research was done. I'd talk to some players or coaches, see if anything new had popped up, and then I'd be in the booth and I'd research and go back and get familiar with some more statistics, call the game, and let the chips fall where they may. So I put in, anywhere from 6 to 9 hours of preparation each week for each game.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure because of the love that you have of sports and broadcasting that there was never a moment, whether you was on the road or at home, that you just like, here we go. No kind of frustration. You was always ready to call a game.
Well, I always kept it in perspective. I've always said it was a blessing. There was only 32 of those jobs on the planet. And
right.
So win, lose, or draw was a blessing. But I'd be lying. I'd be disingenuous if I didn't say there were some 1 in 15 and 2 in 14 seasons where at the end, you're going into December and you're checking how many more road trips you have. And, it's just when your team's not competitive, and you're looking for filler material in the fourth quarter. You're trying to talk about everything but the game. Those seasons can wear on you. I just, I never lost the perspective of knowing that I was blessed to have the job. You just, for fans' sakes, you wanted a little more success than 1 in 15 to 2 in 14.
Right. Now, you've been fortunate, of course, as you brought up the Rams players, but who would you say, or if you have a few amount of people, if you could think of the top of your head, that you would be like, wow, I had the opportunity to interview this guy or meet this person and talk to that person, that like really just blew you away?
Well, I got a chance to interview Larry Bird when he retired up in I was working in Hartford, Connecticut, and the Celtics used to play 3 games a year in Hartford. And at his retirement ceremony, he made people available one-on-one for a live shot. That was pretty cool. I've had the opportunity to interview some people in the KMOV studios when they've been on tour trying to promote something. Mike Ditka was a very interesting guy. He was exactly what you'd expect. Evander Holyfield, I played golf with Evander Holyfield. My friend Richard Banks was friends with him, and Richard would bring him into town for a charity golf tournament. So Evander we'd have him and Cecil Fielder on the set of Sports Sunday. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of interesting people. I don't get starstruck about any of that stuff, but it was a good run, and it's I've had my share of fun interviews. Terry Bradshaw is another one. I mean, I interviewed him in the studio. I grew up a Steelers fan. I grew up a Cardinals fan, St. Louis football Cardinals, but also Steelers fan in the 70s. And Terry Bradshaw was everything I thought he would be interviewing. He was hilarious, funny, friendly. So, you know, I've had an opportunity to interview some cool people.
Dan McLaughlin said recently on 101 ESPN that one of the joys that he has, of course, he can't do it now because of COVID, but one of the joys that he has is being able to go to the opponent's team's broadcast booth and being able to chop it up with those guys and get little notes here and tips here. That's something that you did yourself?
With the other team's broadcast team?
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, it's smooth. It's one of the things I miss. There's a brotherhood, you know, and you really develop it with the teams in your own division because you see them twice a year. The Dave Passion, Ryan Wolfley out in Arizona, the whole Seattle broadcast team, Steve Rabel, Warren Moon, San Francisco, you make friends, and it kind of becomes a brotherhood. And Jeff Joniak in Chicago, Mitch Holtis in Kansas City, a lot of good quality people, and you look out for each other. You know, you do a lot of reciprocal interviews on the pregame shows and everything else, and you get to know these guys. And that's one of the things I miss about being around the game is the brotherhood. There's a brotherhood among players. There's a brotherhood among broadcast teams as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and talk about one of the darkest days, of course, of being a St. Louis Rams fan was when you pretty much knew that it wasn't official yet, but you started getting the idea that they were officially leaving. And we had that very last home game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams had on their mustard, and Tampa Bay had on their ketchup.
Yeah.
Ice Cube.
Right.
I was at the game actually, and Ice Cube and Kevin Hart came out during halftime, I believe, and they was like, you know, saying good things about St. Louis and everything, talking about Emo's pizza. But it came to the realization of knowing that was the last Rams home game. What was your emotions going through during that time?
I tried to keep emotions out of it because I had a job to do, and I didn't want to get caught up in it. But at that time, most of the year, I didn't really believe. I thought that some deal would get worked out. I didn't think the NFL would approve it. I was naive. I didn't know the fix was in. But I had a job to do, so I was a little bit, you know, I kind of realized as we left the Dome that night that might be the last game. When it hit me was the actual final game at Levi Stadium against the 49ers a couple weeks later. And I remember leaving the booth. I stopped, and DeMarco and I were on our way to the bus, and I stopped to take a picture of the booth. Empty booth, just as kind of, and he says, "Come on, man, you don't need to be sentimental. We'll be back." And I just looked at him. I said, "No, I don't think I will." He just looked at me, and I said, "I don't think this team will be." And a few days later, that's when they were approved. So I kept it out of my mind most of the year because it didn't do me any good to get caught up in emotion because I had to be, I had a job to do. But I was disappointed like everybody else. I wouldn't say devastated, but I knew it was a possibility. But I was devastated for the fans, especially those that had PSLs and had supported this team for 20-plus years. I was devastated for the people who relied on secondary income to work those games on Sundays every fall. I felt bad for the business owners around the Dome on Sundays that counted on all that. So it was pretty sobering. I don't think it really sunk in probably until, you know, I saw the Rams playing in LA 8 months later.
Bunny, did you have any questions?
I know it's hard for him to hear me, so go ahead and finish asking yours.
Okay. All right. Once again, this is the Platform Sports Talk Show. Usually your Wednesday night sports light bulb. We here on a Thursday, a special edition. Yours truly, along with Bunny and our special guest, Steve Savard. So, do you still have any interest at all with the Rams? Do you watch any games or try to, or have you just completely moved on from them? I
pretty much moved on. I watch the NFL. I'll watch. I I admire Sean McVay. I think to myself, gosh, what a great guy to work with, and what a pleasure it would be to see him if he had been head coach here in St. Louis. I don't have any affinity. I can't root for the team. There's no way. I mean, St. Louis is my town. What happened was wrong. But I still have friends in the organization and people I respect very much. I worked very closely with the organization for 16 years, and I have great respect for them and affinity for them, but I can't root for them. I didn't want to see them win a Super Bowl. I'm not a Patriots fan, but for one day,
you was
a couple of years ago, I sure was. And I sure was. But I've become a Chiefs fan. I always was kind of a Chiefs fan, but I'm a Chiefs fan, and I'm back to my original roots. I'm a Cardinals fan. I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan because that was the franchise, that was the team I grew up with, and so if you ask me two teams that I have a real rooting interest in, the Cardinals and the Chiefs.
And it's amazing because both of those teams have two exciting young quarterbacks that's already primed to change. Well, Pat Mahomes already did, but it looks like Kyler Murray is on the way of doing the same thing.
Amazing. I mean, think about the quick trajectory he took, because in his last year at Oklahoma, everybody said, hey, great college quarterback, but he's going to play baseball. He's a bonus baby in baseball. He's not big enough to be an NFL quarterback. He'll never make it. Then people started looking at him in the college football playoff. The guy just stood out. I thought to myself, maybe this guy, and he kept climbing the chart in the first round, and then he became the presumptive first overall pick. And it's amazing how good this guy's been so quickly. And they're 2-0 now, and they've surrounded him with some talent. The trade with the Houston Texans.
Oh, my God.
To get Hopkins, amazing move by them. I mean, you talk the first game, DeAndre catches 14 balls for $151. You still have Larry Fitzgerald. You got talent down there. But I think Kyler Murray is on his way to playing the Pro Bowl. I think he's the real leader.
Now, going back to St. Louis, when you heard about the XFL coming back, all of a sudden, the Battlehawks were born. What were your initial thoughts when you heard about the Battlehawks coming to St. Louis?
Skeptical. I mean, we've been through this before. I've seen the XFL fail miserably after a bunch of hype in the early 2000s, in the He Hate Me days.
Right.
And then, I just didn't know what kind of product it was. But I expected there to be a lot of interest in St. Louis, and they didn't. They had the best ratings, the best attendance in the league. It's a shame it didn't last longer. I don't know what the future is with The Rock, but, if he's smart, there's no question if they start the league up again, that St. Louis deserves a franchise. I mean, they had the best attendance. And there were a lot of fans that really – my deal was if it fills the void for fans who are really desperately missing football in this town, good. I had not made it to a game. I did watch on TV. I was curious. And I probably would have gone to a game had the season finished out. So I hope it comes back. I really do.
Yeah, we had a few months ago one of the former Battlehawks players, Mike McCants, on the show, and that was a great interview with him. And spoiler alert, but next Wednesday we will have Kurt Hunziker as our special guest. So we definitely look forward to having him on the show and speaking about his time as the president of the Battlehawks, because he definitely brought a lot to St. Louis. He wanted to do everything that I don't want to say his name on our show, but he definitely brought a lot of love, and he wanted to bring the community together more than the guy who currently runs the Rams right now. So we're going to have Kurt Hunziker on our show next Wednesday. But going back to you as a broadcaster, so we know that during that time you were a sports director for KMOV. What led you to say, what, I've done this, I've done that, now I want to move on to something bigger and do the news?
I just always in the back of my mind, I had a boss early in my career, 1993, that wanted me to become business director. At the time, I was a little bit more idealistic, and I didn't take it. And also, I wanted to be part of big events, and there were too many times when the Pope would come to town, where we'd have 3 days without sports, or we'd have big weather stories, and sports gets canceled. And I understood. I didn't fight that. There's some things more important, life and death, more important than sports. I just wanted to participate and be part of the bigger events. So that's kind of what led me down that path.
So we all know what's going on right now with the situation with Breonna Taylor. We've had the Mike Brown situation, the George Floyd, etc. As someone who was in the news, especially during that prime time slot, you brought up earlier how you weren't big on emotion, broadcasting or covering Rams football. How hard was it for you to hide emotions, bringing out the news of all the crime that's going on in our city, nationally, and etc., and having to have that same face when you're doing the news?
Well, it's just I believe that my job, I always believe, in most about is that you just have to present people the story, present them the facts without bias, and let people decide. I sat in the chair for those years and decided that you, as a viewer, are smart enough to figure out things for yourself. You don't need me leading you in a direction one way or the other. In mainstream media, I don't think it's my job to do that. The toughest thing in the world was during the Mike Brown protest to see this city in flames, to see it on the edge every night, to see, it challenged you as a broadcaster. It really did. And I was really proud of how we did it. The co-anchor and I, Sharon Reed, were on the set for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time until maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on some of these nights. And we had never been through anything like this. There was no playbook. We've never seen anything like this. And, it tore me out to see my city in torment like that. So we did the best we could. And God bless our reporters and our photographers, because they were on the street and fighting tear gas. And, those were very, very difficult times, really, for sure. And we had an easier job in the studio, but sometimes it wasn't easy to try to make sense of it, stay objective, and give people the facts to let people decide for themselves.
All right, so Ms. Williams earlier asked this question. I want to go ahead and bring it up now. Let me see here where it go. Make sure I pull it back up here. Oh, what are your immediate plans for the future in regards to public media and or social media?
Don't know. Well, social media, I'm going to stay on. I mean, I'm not. I don't anticipate going anywhere in social media, but I'm going to take a little time. I'm still got a couple more months left of my contract, even though I'm not on the air, and then I've got some severance pay coming. So I'm going to take some time to decompress and figure some things out and try to find out what's next.
Yeah, 2020 has definitely been cruel from yourself, from earlier Kevin Wheeler leaving from 101 ESPN, then Bernie Miklasz not too long after that. So it's definitely been, troubling, but it's definitely been a pleasure once again to have you on our show. Rapid questions for you before we wrap things up with you on the Platform Sports Talk Show. Overall thoughts on this Cardinals season?
It's hard to wrap my arms around it. It's just such a bizarre season, and I didn't expect the Cardinals to win the division over the course of 162 games. I didn't think they had enough offense. And I think they had some questions in your lineup. I think they've done a pretty good job to hang in, considering the COVID situation early on, the compressed schedule. I think they're competing. I just think they're, I wasn't expecting the Cardinals to be a playoff team this year. Maybe it would have played out differently if the season had gone on as scheduled. But I think they're competing and competitive, but I don't think they're overly talented by Major League Baseball standards.
Right. Yeah, we definitely agree that they need to definitely add more talent so we can hopefully bring home a World Series in the upcoming years. In regards to the Blues, last year you brought up earlier they won a Stanley Cup. Where were you at? What was you doing during that time when they won the Stanley Cup?
I was fortunate enough to be leading our coverage at the watch party at the Enterprise Center for Game 7. I had been to every Stanley Cup Finals home game, and the crowd actually, you would have thought that the game was being played right in front of them on the ice, not just on the Jumbotron, being broadcast from Boston. It was an amazing atmosphere for 3 straight hours. It was a party inside afterwards. I'm so glad that I got a chance to helm that coverage because I've been a Blues fan my whole life. I've been waiting like other people have for 52 years, and they finally delivered, and it was worth the wait.
Nice, nice. And we know that their season got cut short right during the first round of the playoffs against Vancouver. They're playing in a bubble. A lot of people are saying that maybe their heart wasn't in it because they were in that kind of bubble situation. Certain players wasn't really there. What were your takeaways from this Blues season? Because before the virus happened, they were the number 1 seed in the West, and then they had the reseed go on, in which they turn around to be a number 4 seed, and then once again, the bubble situation happened, and then they lose in the first round. We know Tarasenko got hurt, had little nicks and crannies here. But your thoughts on the overall season with the Blues?
Well, it's a shame. I think the stoppage hurt their momentum. But, it's such a grind to get back through. And the Blues have played a lot of hockey. It was a short off season last year. There's no guarantee that if the season had gone on, even as a number 1 seed, that, they would have won the cup. But the problem is it was a bad year to be the number 1 seed. There was really no advantage because you're playing in a bubble. There's no home ice. You don't get the crowd. So they just didn't seem to be playing nearly as good a hockey when the restart began as they were before. And sometimes things get interrupted. I also know they had COVID in some cases in the locker room. Guys weren't able to skate the first couple of weeks when they went back up to the bubble. And so I think maybe the conditioning wasn't what they would have expected had the season not been interrupted.
Yeah. And for those wondering, how come Bunny isn't saying anything? Well, she's been trying to ask questions, but the connection from her end, for some reason, Steve can't really hear that clearly. So I'm trying to do the best that I can to hold her down as well. Bunny, did you want to try to ask him any questions, or are you good to go?
I guess a final thought or just a quick question regarding the MLS team coming to St. Louis.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on its impact to the city? And do you think the organization will do a good job of promoting it?
I do, Bunny. I think it's great news. This has been a great soccer town for a lot of years. There have been people wanting an MLS team here for a long time. And I think there is a real appetite with the Rams leaving. There's a real appetite for more sports here. We saw that, as Smooth mentioned, with the XFL, the reception they got here. And I think that ownership group is committed. It's local. These are people that have made St. Louis their home, and they're making it a better place in their business. And I think that I'm looking forward to it. I've never been a huge soccer fan. I didn't grow up playing it, but I do like soccer at a high level. And I'm very curious to see, but I'm guessing it will be sold out and there will be great demand for tickets. It's just a shame now it got pushed off another year to 2023.
Right.
But it'll be worth the wait, I'm sure, for soccer fans in St. Louis.
Well, St. Louis already showed out by smashing or shattering a record of getting all those season tickets last week. So St. Louis is definitely ready.
Right.
St. Louis is definitely ready. Do you envision St. Louis ever having an NBA team again?
I don't think so. I don't know. I just don't think there's so many dollars to go around. I don't think I really don't think the city would support both hockey and the NBA. They're competing at the same time. They're both very pricey tickets. Just my feeling, I don't think the NBA will be looking at St. Louis. I think the only way it would happen is if somebody, some owner has a connection to St. Louis, or somebody buys a team and is from here or has a connection and wants to move the team on his own. I don't know how likely that is in the future. I don't think that people should be holding their breath for an NBA team anytime soon.
I don't know, man. The people from Enterprise, Jim Kavanaugh was trying to get that Ram Stadium going on before Kroenke was like, nope, be leaving. Then you see what Carol Kendall Betts did for MLS. We need Jim Kavanaugh to come on and make something happen for us now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think their primary concern right now is making sure the MLS team is up and running and fulfills its promise in St. Louis. And you know what? You make a great point. That is a great local ownership group. I'm sure they're going to knock it out.
Yeah. So definitely shouts out to them and much success. Your thoughts on this NFL season? Who you feel? Do you feel is it the Chiefs or bust, or somebody else can come and take their crown?
I think it's hard to repeat in today's NFL climate. The thing about the NFL is the injuries are the great equalizer. I mean, you can be rolling along, and in one weekend you're devastated. I look at the 49ers. They lost Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa rather, and Solomon Thomas with 8 torn ACLs in the same week. Jimmy Garoppolo's now limping around on a bum ankle. That could bother him for quite a long time and affect maybe half the season. And I think the 49ers were one of the best teams, obviously, in the NFL last year. But, injuries. So as much as I think the Chiefs are set up for a run, anything can happen with injuries. If anything happens to Mahomes or Kelsey or the human highlight machine over there at wide receiver, it's hard to predict in the NFL, particularly this early. But if the Ravens stay healthy, I think they're going to be difficult to deal with because Lamar Jackson is the X factor. I think another Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson matchup in the playoffs in the AFC Championship would be really, really interesting because I think while Mahomes is probably the best, most dynamic quarterback in the NFL, I think Lamar's getting better every single season, and that should scare a lot of teams right now.
Jonathan McDaniel says he agrees that it's very hard to repeat. But we're going to see. Patrick Mahomes, he's different. He's a different breed. They just signed the head coach. What's his name? I've got his name real quick. Andy Reid. Just signed him to an extension.
Andy Reid.
So that team's going to be dangerous for a while. But we'll definitely see about the Ravens. Speaking of which, Chiefs, Ravens, Monday Night Football. Get your popcorn ready.
Right. Yeah, get your popcorn. That's right. Get your popcorn.
Get your popcorn.
How about those ratings?
Man, that's going to be crazy. And I know that you moved on from them, but a couple years ago, Monday Night Football, did you watch that Rams and Chiefs game?
Yeah. That was incredible.
Man, that was amazing.
That was amazing.
And I'm pretty sure
that was amazing.
I'm pretty sure everybody in St. Louis we could have had that here.
Right. Yeah. Well, they go to LA, and you know what? They made a great hire in Sean McVay. What a great hire! I mean, he turned it around a lot faster than anybody could have imagined. But I'm a little bit surprised they're off to a 2-0 start, but they put it to Philadelphia last week, so you got to give them credit.
And it's pretty sad that Todd Gurley's career is probably not over, but it's right towards the end. It looks like he's just not going to be healthy enough to be that elusive back like he used to be.
Well, he's been hampered, obviously, by that knee. I mean, you saw it. Bunny, you saw it, how dynamic he was in his rookie year, 2015, their last season here. And,
it was crazy.
I would have bet that if the knee held up, he would have on his way to a Hall of Fame career by the way he burst onto the scene. But I haven't really followed him. I know in his first game he had 50 yards in the first half. I didn't see what he did last week, but I hope the guy holds in there because he's a supreme talent, and I hope he can get some more out of his body.
We brought up The Last Dance earlier. Ms. Williams had a question. What is your opinion of Dennis Rodman since you brought him up earlier?
Wasn't a big fan when he played. I don't think I really completely understood the impact he had on the games. I can't deny it now. I don't think they have the 3 years in a row. Obviously, he wasn't the MVP of the team. but I think he was a very necessary part between defense, rebounding. And look, one of the things that came through was that Michael Jordan wanted a guy a little bit more committed, but he was willing to bend the rules a little bit. So was Phil Jackson.
Right.
They had to give him some time off. He had to go to Vegas for a couple of days. At the end of the day, when they kept winning championships, as goofy as that seemed, I'm sure they thought it was worth it because he definitely played a role. But he was very integral to that second 3-year run they had. There's no question. I can't deny that.
And sticking with the NBA, who you going with to go all the way?
Oh, well, I'm a Celtics fan, so, I'm disappointed to see them down 3-1 to Miami. Miami's on a great run. The 5th seed is now a win away in the East from going to the final.
Right.
I've always liked LeBron, but, when he went to the Lakers, I'm a Celtics fan. I can't be a Lakers fan, so I stopped being a LeBron fan the minute he started wearing the purple. Sorry, that's just the way it is, Celtic and Laker history, but he's on the Mount Rushmore. There's no question about it. He's on the Mount Rushmore of NBA players of all time. I've always liked him. I just can't deal with him in a Lakers uniform. Sorry, that's just how I am.
All right, before we go.
But I will tell you this, Smooth. I say this. Getting Anthony Davis
big time
was the move for the Lakers. This guy is so dynamic and so complete, and he is a classic future Hall of Fame big man. There aren't many of those guys left around. He does it all. The other night, he steps back with 1 second to go and hits a fall-away three-pointer. I mean, it's 7 feet tall. This guy is worth his money. LeBron's the greatest. Yeah, I get it. But they're not in that position with Anthony Davis. He's been the difference between them not being a playoff team last year and now being close to winning, getting to the NBA final.
Jonathan also says, go Jason Tatum. How special is it, speaking of Tatum, how special is it to see what he's doing? Same thing with Bradley Beal. You've had Ben McLemore. You've had David Lee. Just the flux of talent from St. Louis and just making it really big right now in the league.
And Chaminade specifically, man, what a run by Chaminade. I love Jason Tatum. When he was at Duke, I was a Celtics fan, and Celtics were drafting anywhere from 3rd to 1st to 5th, depending on who they traded with. But I kept being told, nah, Jason Tatum's not worth the 3rd overall pick. I said, you're out of your mind.
Right.
I said, this kid's got everything you want. He's a 5-tool player. He's smart. He's going to get bigger and stronger. And you already see that body developing now when he's 21 years old.
Right.
Maybe 22. I just thought that being a lifelong Celtics fan, when they drafted him, I was just in love with that move, and it's paying off because he's turning into one of the premier players in the league, no question.
Yes, he is, and like you say,
so I got to jump off. It's been fun with you, but if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, hey, that was our last question anyway. Just wanted to go ahead and
okay.
Bunny, did you have any last comments, remarks? Okay.
Do I have any? Oh, Bunny.
Okay. Yep. So that was it, man. Just want to ask you about the NBA, but we definitely appreciate having you on the show. It's definitely been our honor and pleasure, and definitely best of luck to you, and hope to have you on the show again in the nearby future.
Smooth and Bunny, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, that's the Platform Sports Talk Show. Once again, next Wednesday, we will have former president of the St. Louis Battlehawks, Kurt Hunziker, on the show. And we look forward to providing you even more great content. To all those watching, thank you very much. Please follow, give us that like, go on YouTube, subscribe, click on that bell. So anytime we go live, you will be notified. Once again, thank you very much, Steve Savard. You have a wonderful rest of the evening, and we are out of here. Have a great Thursday and also an upcoming weekend, everybody. We are out.